There are days in life that carve a line between who you were and who you become. Mine arrived in the chilled corridor of a Manhattan hospital, where the walls buzzed faintly with machines and strangers hurried past without noticing the older woman, clutching her coat like a shield. I had traveled 11 hours on an overnight bus, one that rattled along dark highways and paused in forgotten towns, while I sat there believing I was heading toward one of the happiest moments of my life. My son, Ethan, was about to become a father. I imagined hearing his excited voice, imagined holding my grandchild, imagined the warmth of a future I thought I still belonged to. I even brought a knitted white blanket, carefully wrapped and tucked inside my old walnut-brown purse. But instead of joy, I was met with a quiet cruelty. "Mom, Claire prefers to have just her parents here right now." He said it gently, but his eyes never met mine. The same boy who once gripped my hand during thunderstorms now stood before me like someone delivering uncomfortable news on behalf of someone else, polite, restrained, distant. Claire. She had never spoken to me directly, never answered a message, never shown interest in knowing me. Yet here she was, shaping my place in my own son's life. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "Please don't make it harder. She's not comfortable around you." The sentence, soft, hesitant, still hit with brutal precision. I thought of the nights I rocked Ethan through fevers, the mornings he ran to me with scraped knees, the years I spent working 2 jobs after his father died, telling myself every sacrifice was worth it because one day he would understand the depth of a mother's love. But the man standing in front of me wasn't that boy. Not anymore. I nodded, because my mother once taught me that silence could be dignity. I would not argue in a corridor filled with strangers. I would not cry where anyone could see. I would not beg for a moment that should have been mine by rig. I walked away slowly, past laughing new grandparents, past proud fathers, past fragments of the life I once imagined sharing with my son. Outside, the February wind struck my face, sharper than the hallway's fluorescent cold. Only then did I realize how carefully I had been holding myself together. By the time I reached the small hotel room, after hours of forcing myself not to break, I finally collapsed onto the bed and cried until my chest ached. Every hope I had carried on that long bus ride felt shattered. But the truth was simple. What broke that night had been cracking for years. If I had recognized the earliest signs of my son slipping away, I might have changed everything that followed. Before Claire entered the picture, before her clipped tone echoed in my son's uneasy voice, there was a time when Ethan and I lived in a world that felt small, warm, and safe. Ethan was born on a humid August evening. The world outside was rumbling with thunder, the kind that shakes rooftops and rattles window frames. By the time my husband, Michael, managed to get the car started, we were practically drenched. Yet I remember smiling through the pain because I knew our child was close. When Ethan first cried, his voice was so tiny, it made me cry harder. Michael held him, as if he were holding something sacred. We named him after my father, a gentle man with quiet eyes. For years our home smelled of warm bread, clean laundry, and the occasional disaster Ethan created while helping me cook. Sundays meant ice cream at the park, kites tangled in trees, and Michael trying, unsuccessfully, to teach Ethan how to throw a baseball. Most weekends ended in laughter, the kind that filled the entire house. Exactly 9:15 p.m. His voice didn't remind me that I mattered, it simply brought a familiar calm, a connection neither of us wanted to lose. But slowly, the calls became less frequent. Every other night. Then once a week. Then only when he remembered, or when I asked. And as the conversations thinned, something I couldn't name began forming between us, not miles, not time, but a quiet absence. A silence that felt like it was settling in. I didn't yet realize that someone else was feeding that silence, and that it would soon change everything. The silence between Ethan and me might have remained manageable if not for one name that began slipping into every conversation, Claire. I still remember the first time he mentioned her. His voice carried a small spark, the kind that told me something in his life had shifted. Mom, I've been seeing someone. I smiled instinctively. I had prayed he would meet someone who saw the kind, earnest parts of him the world often overlooked. What's her name? Claire, he said, a hint of pride in his tone. She's an architect, smart, focused. You'd like her. For a moment, I believed him. As the weeks passed, though, her name gradually settled at the center of our conversations. Every new detail he shared had her woven into it, her favorite restaurants, her projects, her routines, her world. I listened, hoping to feel connected to this new chapter of his life. But I began noticing the gaps, the things Ethan didn't say. He never told me what she thought of me. He never put her on the phone when she was nearby. He never sent a photo of the two of them together, even though I later found dozens of pictures of her with friends, co-workers, even acquaintances. So one evening, gently, I asked, "Will I get to meet her?" A long pause. Then a quick, light laugh that didn't sound natural. "Eventually, Mom. It's just a little early." A little early, after months? I didn't push. I didn't want him to hear insecurity where there was only curiosity. Yet something in his tone unsettled me. When I eventually found Claire online, I sent a warm message, a simple, polite greeting. "Nice to meet you, sweetheart." She opened it and left it unread from there. I told myself she was busy, or shy, or simply didn't know what to say. I tried not to assume the worst. As Ethan grew more serious with her, his calls shifted into brief check-ins. Conversations that once filled an hour became 10-minute summaries of his day. "Claire's waiting." Always, "Claire's waiting." And each time he said it, I felt him take one more step away from the closeness we once had. I didn't want to sound jealous. I didn't want to push him. I didn't want tea. I still remember the first time he mentioned her. His voice carried a small spark, the kind that told me something in his life had shifted. "Mom, I've been seeing someone." I smiled instinctively. I had prayed he would meet someone who saw the kind, earnest parts of him the world often overlooked. "What's her name?" "Claire," he said, a hint of pride in his tone. "She's an architect, smart, focused. You'd like her." For a moment, I believed him. As the weeks passed, though, her name gradually settled at the center of our conversations. Every new detail he shared had her woven into it, her favorite restaurants, her projects, her routines, her world. I listened, hoping to feel connected to this new chapter of his life. But I began noticing the gaps, the things Ethan didn't say. He never told me what she thought of me. He never put her on the phone when she was nearby. He never sent a photo of the two of them together, even though I later found dozens of pictures of her with friends, co-workers, even acquaintances. So one evening, gently, I asked, "Will I get to meet her?" A long pause. Then a quick, light laugh that didn't sound natural. "Eventually, Mom. It's just a little early." A little early, after months? I didn't push. I didn't want him to hear insecurity where there was only curiosity. Yet something in his tone unsettled me. When I eventually found Claire online, I sent a warm message, a simple, polite greeting. "Nice to meet you, sweetheart." She opened it and left it unread from there. I told myself she was busy, or shy, or simply didn't know what to say. I tried not to assume the worst. As Ethan grew more serious with her, his calls shifted into brief check-ins. Conversations that once filled an hour became 10-minute summaries. "Waiting." Always, "Claire's waiting." And each time he said it, I felt him take one more step away from the closeness we once had. I didn't want to sound jealous. I didn't want to push him. I didn't want tea. Realize then was that Claire wasn't just quietly sitting in the distance. She was shaping it, defining it. And soon, the small cracks between Ethan and me would widen into something I didn't know how to mend. The first real break came the night I learned about their engagement, a night I discovered in a way I never expected. The evening I learned about Ethan's engagement, the sky outside my window was painted in muted pinks and deep oranges, the kind of sunset that makes you think. Something gentle is on its way. I was stirring soup on the stove when my phone rang. His name lit up the screen, and my heart lifted a little. It had been almost 2 weeks since I had heard his voice. "Mom," he said, sounding breathless but strangely formal, "I have news." I set the spoon down carefully. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Claire and we're getting married." For a moment, the room seemed to tilt, not out of surprise, but out of the sudden weight of how he said it. "That's wonderful," I managed. "Truly. When is the wedding?" "In 3 months. Something small, just family and a few close friends." "Of course," I said softly. "I'll be there." He exhaled with relief. "Great. Claire will email you the details." Not a call. Not an invitation handed to me with excitement. An email, something transactional, like a reminder from a dentist's office. When the email arrived, the digital invitation was elegant: watercolor florals, gold lettering, and a photo of Ethan and Claire standing together. She wore a pale dress. He rested his hand gently on her back. They both smiled, but his smile looked unfamiliar. Practiced, almost careful. I printed the invitation and pinned it to my refrigerator, not because it comforted me, but because I wanted to believe I still had a place in his new life. On the wedding day, the garden venue shimmered with soft lights and white roses. I arrived early, hoping to catch a quiet moment with Ethan before guests filled the space. Instead, Claire approached first with a polite, distant smile. "You must be Ethan's mom." "That's right," I replied, offering a warm hug that she didn't fully return. "Lovely to meet you," she said, though her eyes flicked briefly to my dress, shoes, hair. Assessing, measuring, before she excused herself to greet someone else. A few minutes later, Ethan embraced me quickly. "I'm glad you're here, Mom. I need to welcome everyone, but I'll see you in a bit." He slipped away before I could say anything more. Later never arrived. When it was time to sit, an usher guided me to the 3rd row, not beside family, not even near them. It wasn't a mistake, the seating chart was displayed at the entrance. I was placed deliberately apart, close enough to see everything but far enough not to belong. So I sat quietly, listening to vows that were beautiful, yet carried the echo of distance. But what happened after the ceremony, the moment everyone else celebrated, revealed just how invisible I had become in my son's new life. After the wedding, the silence between Ethan and me grew sharper, not empty but pointed, as if meant to keep me at a distance. He called once from the airport before leaving for the honeymoon. 5 minutes of small talk during which he sounded like someone updating a distant acquaintance. "We're heading to Mexico," he said. "It's always been Claire's dream spot." He promised to send photos. They never came. But I saw them anyway, a stream of images on Claire's social media: turquoise water, candlelit dinners, Ethan smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years, and Claire resting her hand gently on her belly as if hinting at a future they hadn't spoken aloud. A few weeks later, Ethan finally called with a tone I couldn't quite identify, something caught between fear and happiness. "Mom." Despite everything, a warmth rose in my chest. "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful." He told me she was 3 months along. It stung that I was told so late, but I pushed that feeling aside. A grandchild was a light I had been quietly hoping for. Months passed, marked by updates I mostly saw online rather than heard from Ethan. Claire posted ultrasound pictures, baby bump photos, nursery decor, each one overflowing with comments from her family and friends. Except mine. My comments sat unanswered, like echoes no one heard. Still, I tried to show love in the ways I could. I sent a small package, a soft yellow blanket. I had knitted, tiny socks, a stuffed lamb, and a handwritten note for the baby. A week later, Ethan texted, "Thanks, Mom. The blanket looks nice." Just that. No photo of it. No acknowledgement from Claire. Time moved quickly. Claire's due date approached. I asked Ethan every so often if I could visit once the baby arrived, even briefly. His answers were gentle but evasive. "Let's see how she feels." It's been hectic. She needs rest. Then the day came, the day that should have been one of the brightest of my life. And I learned about it by accident. Claire posted a picture of the newborn, tiny, peaceful, swaddled in a blue blanket that wasn't mine. "Welcome to the world, Lucas," the caption read. My breath caught. My hands trembled. My grandson's arrival had been shared with strangers before me. Hours later, Ethan finally answered my call, his voice tired, subdued.
"Mum, I'm sorry.
Everything happened really fast." "I understand," I whispered. "Can I see him?" A long pause. "Not right now. Claire's parents are here. It's a lot. Too many people around." Too many people, as if I weren't his mother, but part of a crowd pressing in. In that moment, something inside me shifted, not broken, but awakened. What I chose to do after that moment changed everything, for me, for my son. And for the future I refused to give up. Anyone throw me out of again? And what about you? If you were in my place, would you have the courage to say enough and start over? Share your thoughts below so we can talk about family, self-respect, and the lessons life teaches us. And if you'd like to stay with me through more stories of strength, awakening, and kindness, stay tuned. This journey still has many beautiful chapters ahead.